As a mental health advocate and author, I love books. Books have the capacity to inspire, educate, transform, and ultimately help readers all over the world. So if you want to publish your book or if you need help writing your story, I highly recommend Mindstir Media, rated the #1 best book publisher around the country. Mindstir Media can help you no matter where you are in the book writing or publishing process. Go to mindstirmedia.com to learn more and schedule a consultation.
Out Comes the Sun with Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi. Out Comes the Sun compassionately helps you navigate mental wellness practices that you can apply to your daily life. And we tell your story. And now, Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Out Comes the Sun Radio with my co-host and best friend, Melissa Yamaguchi. I'm Mariel Hemingway, and another amazing show is coming to you today. But first we start with our sunrise segment, and our sunrise segment is the time that Melissa and I get to come together and share with you probably what we've already talked about on a walk sometime in the morning.
Yep.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, I would like to banter back and forth, ping pong, table tennis, if you will, the topic of DNA. Now, what recently has taken place that was just reported in the news, not that I'm an avid news watcher, not like I used to be, is that people have been caught, potential criminals, based on their DNA. Now, I remember very succinctly when the whole genetics things were coming out and people were providing their spittle in a vial and shooting it off to find out their ancestry, their lineage, right?
Right.
And there was a big brouhaha about it because of the fear of what that meant, that we were so easily and unquestioningly giving up our DNA to an unknown source, right? So that was a big, huge thing. But then most recently, like I said, several, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it, Mariel? I mean, you can't, it's like having your cake and eating it too. We want the bad guys caught, right? Yeah. And I don't mean any genderization by saying, guys, don't come at me. But I mean, we want the bad person caught, but we want to be safe with our own autonomy. As we do have that, we deserve that right. So what are your thoughts on this, Mariel?
Well, that's an interesting conversation because I think that DNA is exciting, and it tells a lot about a person, but, coming from a genetically gifted family, but also a genetically, challenged family when it comes to mental health, because that's what we like to talk about on this show quite often, is that, when you think of DNA, you think that that's the only way that it can be. And I'm just a big believer that, DNA is one thing, genetics are one thing, but lifestyle, change your environment and change your life, right? You can totally shift your DNA expression. I mean, Bobby, and this as well as I do, because Bobby is my significant other who is creating a machine that is actually going to change the DNA expression of your body, which is your brain. It's going to change your brain cells. It's going to do incredible things. Yeah. And I want to believe, and I do believe that, that's the future. And I think that we are so powerful that we can shift that conversation. And, I love the idea that you can, send DNA off and find out your, what is it, 23andMe or whatever.
23andMe or Ancestry.com, yeah.
I just get a little nervous giving my information out, right? I mean, there has been that conversation about you give out your information and certain people are using it for something else, like I that's actually going down a rabbit hole of conspiracy that I just don't want to even venture into, because I don't want to give it any power, even if it by chance exists.
Well, I mean, not utilizing it, I'm with you on understanding in the study of and field of longevity, how you can, especially with the stratosphere machine, being able to alter your genetic expression. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to turn into the guy on Laugh-In. I'm just going to talk like this. Coming to you live from WKRZ in downtown Burbank. Okay, sorry about that, sound engineers. For those who are riding in the car and can't see me, my entire setup exploded over the talk of DNA. I guess there's someone offended.
Landed in her lap.
My ancestral spirits that are traveling around me and hovering over me, they're like knocking it off and telling me to shut up. I think the thing that I find I'm most astounded by is that it's clearly, if the person in point that I was reading about this morning, who was caught as some serial rapist, right? He left his DNA. So he kind of lost rights to his DNA. And I see why that could be utilized against him. Absolutely. However, my question is, it's a slippery slope.
Yes.
You being in control of your DNA, you deciding to get into the stratosphere, you deciding to meditate and take the right steps and procedures in your life to alter your course is one thing. We don't have to wear the yoke of genetic past. But it being used is the thing that always kind of makes me stop, take my microphone and put it up next to my head. That's what happens.
Perfect. Yep. I hear you. Hey, I want to welcome our guest, who is actually patiently waiting in the waiting room, Dr. Christina Bjorndal. And I hope I said that correctly. Stay right here. She's coming back and she's amazing. And I'm going to tell you all about her. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio, and we'll be back in a second. So our guest today, Dr. Christina Bjorndal ND, is considered an authority in the treatment of mental illnesses such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorders, and eating disorders, using a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual approach. Having overcome many health challenges herself, Dr. Chris is a gifted speaker and best-selling author who has shared her wellness philosophy with platforms such as the Jenny McCarthy Show, the International Bipolar Foundation, and many, many health summits and docuseries. She is recognized as a top ND to follow by 2 independent organizations. Her book, Beyond the Label, is a comprehensive guide to naturopathic mental health. Christina Bjorndal is a licensed naturopathic doctor and established keynote speaker on how to regain your mental health using a naturopathic approach. She is the co-founder of Natural Terrain, a naturopathic clinic in Edmonton, Canada, and is regularly interviewed for print magazines and online resources as a leader in her field. Well, I also know her as somebody who's very outspoken on Instagram. I just happened to follow her and I thought I knew her. And I told our executive producer, Jeremiah Higgins, reach out to her because I think we're friends. Anyway, you are really an inspiration, and it's everything I believe in when it comes to mental health, because I believe that mental health is so linked to our lifestyle and to our physical, what we do, what we eat, how we breathe, whether we drink water, whether we ground, all these things. And you yourself have overcome many health, mental health challenges. And can you first kind of tell us about that? Like, what were your challenges and how did you overcome them?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's kind of serendipitous because in a few days, it actually marks my very first suicide attempt. And so I've had 3 and I've had 6 psychotic events. And so the labels that I've been given are anxiety, depression, bulimia, bipolar disorder type 1. And these are all pretty, heavy, right? And you get the message that you're broken and you're not The only option is medication for life. And that's basically how you pretty much get treated. So those have been the struggles. And since that date, which was June 9th, 1994, when I had that suicide attempt, it left me in a coma with kidney failure. I was on dialysis. I was told I would need a kidney transplant. And I can tell you this, certainly wasn't happy when I opened my eyes.
Wow.
Right. And I had to figure out, okay, well, how do I, like, this is how I've been navigating this journey, right? 5 psychotropic meds, wearing the mask that I'm okay on the outside, but I'm dying on the inside. I reported to a CEO, like, I had it all, accordingly to the way that we look at success on that horizontal material plane.
Absolutely.
Right. But I was struggling with this vertical spiritual plane. And that's really been the journey, I have to say, back to myself. And I love that your show is called Out Comes the Sun, because my suicide recovery song is, oh God, it's now I'm drawing a blank what it was called. It's the rain, when the rain comes, when the rain stops, by Bob Marley. Do you know that one?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
I can
Melissa,
see
come on, you're a singer. Come up with it.
Yeah, I can, anyway, we'll figure it out by the end of the show, what the song was, but you'll know it. I'm just drawing a blank now because.
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to you. I come from 7 suicides. I've had suicidal ideation. I never attempted suicide. I know what that dark night of the soul is. I never had psychotic episodes or was never diagnosed with all the wonderful diagnoses you got, but I do know what it's like to fear that. And I come from a family that has that. So you are such a courageous leader in this space because you are proof that you can overcome this without what people just generally think is, well, what I think is a Band-Aid. I'm not saying, like, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not saying that every person is the same, but I feel like what you're doing is long-term solution to a mental, and wow, your mental health struggles are phenomenal. Wow. I mean, geez, that's powerful. And how did you, were you a naturopathic doctor before then?
No.
Led you to doing what you're doing now?
Pardon?
What led you to doing what you're doing now?
Yeah. So really it was that crisis, that attempt. And I realized, my goodness, I got to figure out another way. I got to figure out another way to navigate this journey, because the way I'm doing it, it's just not working. Like I'm depressed, right? I'm anxious, like I'm not getting better. Yeah. So a friend gave me a book to read by Marianne Williamson called A Return to Love. It's a beautiful book. And that what struck me, though, there was this quote on surrender, which goes along these lines, that surrender is not about breaking out of anything, but it's a gentle melting into who you really are. So you take off the mask and you discover that all God needs is just one sincere, surrendered moment when love matters more than anything and nothing else matters at all. And so the key word for me in that was the word love. When you're at that place where you want to end your life, you're the furthest from loving yourself that you can possibly be.
Yeah.
Right. And so really it was through my own healing process that I went to see a nutritionally oriented psychiatrist who started me on several supplements to support the biochemical pathways in the body that support neurotransmitter formation. I carried those on along with all the medication. And then I had my first year where I was free from depression and anxiety that I had not had in the 15 years prior. So I thought, okay, my diet, though, by the way, was still not good. It was still not good. Right. So I want to really mention that to people here, because you don't want to just out supplement a crappy diet. So sure, you could feel better taking all the supplements. Yes. But if you stop those supplements and you won't change what you're putting into the system to make the hormones and neurotransmitters that you need to make, you're going to end up back in the gutter.
Well,
right?
my point to that, and I'm just going to interrupt you for a second, is that why do we think a supplement or even an Advil, which will change you within 10 minutes, isn't exactly the same as putting like a horrible, processed cheeseburger in your mouth that, is just nutritionally vacant. So anyway, go back.
Exactly.
Back to what you were saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're both serving a purpose, but they're not root cause. It's not root cause. Right. So then, anyways, basically, long story short, I realized that this wasn't the only guy that the fellow that I went to see, Dr. Abraham Hoffer, he was 82 years old at the time. And I thought, my God, this can't be the only guy in the country that's, and he's new, right? Like, how long is he going to last? So I went back to high school when I was 33 and I made the career change to become a naturopathic doctor. And yeah, you know what? It's such, I'm just so grateful that I did, because it's such a beautiful medicine. It gets to the root of the problem. It helps people truly turn their lives around. And there's nothing more rewarding than that.
Absolutely.
You're such an established keynote speaker, and you are a naturopathic doctor, and you've really spoken on how to regain your mental health through the naturopathic approach. And I was reading a lot of the things that you've written about and you've spoken about. And one of the things that intrigued me that relates to all of us is you talk about hormones and the effects that your hormones have on your mental health. And nobody's talking about this. People are talking about it, I'm sure, but nobody is focusing on it. I would love for you to share this with our audience.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just so the picture we want to understand is that there's 4 aspects to all of us: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
Yes.
Western system is focusing on that physical piece of the puzzle alone. And I think if that's all you're going to look at, then you're going to miss 75% of it. Right.
Yeah.
So then, but on the physical, for sure, we got to start somewhere. So we can start there. And we want to understand there's 3 macro systems: your neurotransmitters, your hormones, your organs of detoxification, and I'll just throw in there your immune system. So with the hormones, we want to understand that there's so many hormones, but I'm just talking about the key ones that people generally are familiar with, which is estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, your thyroid hormones, cortisol, and DHEA. If you look up the symptomology of every single one of those, they have mental health pieces to that. So it could be anxiety, depression, insomnia, irritability, mood swings. And then we, especially, so big pet peeve of mine, I have a few. One of them is going to the doctor when you're in your 50s or late 40s or even early 40s. And you're saying that you can't sleep and you're irritable and you're, flying off the handle and maybe anxious, and you get prescribed an SSRI. And I'm like, it's the wrong macro system.
Right.
Your ancestors like that.
Wow.
Carry on.
You're hilarious. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so that's the point. And the other point I guess I'll make too is a key question you always want to ask is, when did things begin? And sometimes you have to go to that in utero experience, and also the intergenerational trauma piece, right?
Yes. I love that you're bringing that up.
Yeah, that's huge. And I didn't answer this question when Mariel asked me at the beginning, but it's, I'm adopted. So there is this intergenerational trauma piece, and not one practitioner ever asked me about trauma.
Yeah. Wow. It's so fascinating. But that's key. And to leave those pieces out and go get something that's just addressing one thing, and that's not the root cause. I mean, that's what you are about to me. You represent, let's get to the core. Like that's always what it is. What's your story? Then let's dive deep. Let's go even deeper into your story and then find the solutions based on what your story tells you, what the traumas tell you, what this tells you, what that tells you. And sometimes you come onto this planet with a whole host of whatever, right? There's that too. Because when you talk about the spiritual piece, who knows what else you've, brought into this realm that we live in this physical plane. But yeah. Wow.
I love that you said emotional. I come from one of my great grandmothers was a midwife.
Oh, I love it.
Country. And she had a woman that came to her who had lost a baby. the baby was born, but then the baby died soon thereafter, and she still needed to express her milk because her body was still in mourning, and she broke out in hives, and all these doctors were trying to put, give her something. There wasn't hydrocortisone back then, but they were giving her some kind of topical. And my grandmother said, what you put on top of her is going to shove it. My great grandmother is going to shove it into the body, and we've got to deal with her pain. And they were saying, you're not, and they were poo-pooing my great grandmother. And I remember hearing the story as a child that you put this cream on the top of the skin, and then the rash goes in, but where did it go? And it's your body trying to express itself. And this is the type of work that you're dealing with when you're talking about. I love that you mentioned, yes, physical. That's the first given, that because that's the base place we start. But you talked about the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. The emotional aspects, I'm sure, in your line of work, doctor, is really a major component, especially after COVID, when people were dealing with isolation and loneliness. Can you speak to us about that?
Yeah, first I just want to tag on what you were just saying though about the skin. In our world, what we see often is a newborn perhaps might come up with something happening on their skin, and they call it eczema. They do put hydrocortisone on it, which suppresses it, and then they develop asthma. So people because that's where it gets driven in. It gets driven in the body, and then it comes out. So we see that.
It's got to come out some way, right?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I mean, what you suppress, what you don't express, what you repress it's just energy in motion, and it's going to ping around inside, right?
Yeah.
Create disturbances. So super important. So it's so now, sorry, I lost the question. Gosh, that you asked me
about the emotional health that you're having to deal with, because we're just coming out of the pandemic, especially.
Yeah. I wrote an article recently about loneliness and this epidemic of loneliness in children and teenagers in particular. So I'll just share with you this interesting piece of research I came across. They were looking at these gorillas, I believe it was, and they noticed some seemed depressed. So the researchers thought, okay, we're going to take them away from out and see if the rest of the community thrives, and how that, because maybe they're impacting them, and how are they impacting them? So they took these away, they went back to see, and what do you think they found amongst the remaining gorillas in the community? They were all dead. They were all dead.
Oh, I didn't know. I would have never guessed that.
I know, because these depressed gorillas were they were the canary in the coal mine. They were the ones signaling that something's off. We need to be moving or changing or doing something. And so they took them out. They lost that.
Right.
And the rest didn't know. So that's kind of a reframe to look at the loneliness piece that's happening in our society, that actually there's something wrong, and not to turn the other way, but this is the canary in the coal mine, if you will.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So
absolutely. And the loss of touch from that, right? Melissa and I have talked about that on the show here, that desire, that need to be touched and held. And then all of a sudden you're isolated, you're lonely, you're behind a screen like we are today, but there's no contact with other human contact. And I'm sure it's like any animal, we all need that. We need that relationship to other humans. Also the earth, you need to touch the earth. You need to be connected.
Yeah. Yes. And gosh, I mean, what happens to a newborn baby is not going to survive if it's not touched. It's not. So it's a really important piece. And I think that this was happening before the pandemic. It only got, the crevices just got wider and deeper as a result of. And I think we have to really get back to how can we connect with each other.
Yes.
Without, I mean, it's wonderful that we can connect today with technology, but the technology also is a huge problem.
Right. It is a huge problem. Let me ask you something on your journey, on your personal journey through depression, bipolar, this, that, and the other thing. What were you able to discover about your DNA genetic history, even though you weren't able to find that out from your birth parents? What were you able to discover as your core root cause?
Right.
Or maybe there were many.
Yeah, I think there were many, but one of the key pieces, and I'm glad you asked that, because I wanted to come back to what you had mentioned about this story. when people need to share their story, yes. However, we also have to ask, the most important thing isn't the story, it's what did you make the story mean? What
Yes.
beliefs did you form, right, as a result of that experience? And we can then change those beliefs, because many of them are limiting and faulty and incorrect.
Yeah, it's just change your thought, change your thoughts, change your life. I totally agree, because a belief is just a thought that you think over and over and over
Right.
again.
And
Yeah.
you can make a new decision. You make a
Yeah.
new decision.
Yes.
So yeah, it was interesting. So when I had that first psychotic event, believe me, it was a little bit of a, whoa, what the heck was that? And you know, I was like, I didn't know anything about mental illness at all. So, and this is in the 80s. So hey,
I remember them.
yes, they were a good time, right? So I would ask, which like most people do, to the doctor, what's going on with me? Like, what's happening to me? And why did this happen? Why did this happen? And he said, well, it's genetic. And I couldn't look to the left or my right to verify the truth of that. And so I didn't accept it as the truth. And this is what I think is really important, because a lot of people will say that, well, depression runs in my family. So, you know, my mother had it, my grandmother had it, so I'm going to get it too. And that's just not true.
No.
It's just not true. As you know, this idea of epigenetics. So genes load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. So you're not your genes. You can, it's about, is it lit up or not? Is that gene turned on or not in you?
Yes.
Right. And so, but interestingly enough, I do start my book with an introduction from one of my teachers, who's Gabor Mate, and this work on the in utero environment. And so if a mother is stressed, and not just the mother too, because a lot of women feel a lot of guilt over this. So I want to mention too, it's the father as well. It's not just the mother, it's the environment that they're in. So that can result in more cortisol affecting the developing fetus, which is at a time when crucial brain structures are being developed. And so you can be sort of set up, if you will, to be more anxious. But as I just said, that can be changed. That can be changed. So so I did come out of the womb quite nervous and anxious, apparently, and, terrible sleeper, and nobody could come near me and all of that. But I also think that for me, it was when I learned that I was adopted. I formed a belief about it. And I was young, I was 5, and I didn't fully understand what that word meant, adoption. So I translated it to mean that I was there temporarily.
Wow.
And so every time the doorbell rang, I thought it was time to go.
Oh,
wow.
So you can
That
imagine
symbology of that behind a suicide attempt is pretty powerful.
that's heavy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
And, the other beliefs that sort of got filed into the subconscious system here was, I'm not wanted, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. And you'll see this amongst overachiever, and I am an overachiever, right? I mean, goodness me. I was an overachiever. I'm a recovering type A perfectionist person. And you'll see that behind those types of individuals is they're compensating for a sense of lack.
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You also, there's something on your site that's really quite incredible, and you honor the elders and the knowledge keepers who have come before us, and all the peoples who make their home in the treaty regions of Alberta, Canada, and around the world. And how do you, I know this is such a big part of Melissa's life, because she has, American Indian in her heritage. How do you honor the ancestors?
Well, so my
And
husband,
and isn't this something that we've lost?
oh goodness, yes. Yes. Well, one of the ways is, my husband's First Nation. So I have through him really learned to honor the land and to turn to the land first and foremost. So there's been a lot of, and I'll try not to cry here, but it's been very upsetting what's been happening here with the residential schools. and the graves that they're discovering of children. Do you guys know about that?
Yes, yes.
Ugh.
Yeah, so it's just a really, so for me, it's really just about honoring each and every one of us, but especially the fact that, we haven't been so good as Europeans coming over to the,
No.
we haven't, and we need to apologize, and we need to be humbly bow before each and every one of the First Nation people that we come across. So, yeah.
That's
So I whenever I there's lots of different cultural events here in Canada, and there was one a couple of years ago. This was before all of this came out. I mean, the residential school piece was always there.
Yes.
And I felt very humbled. I started my career in Whitehorse in the Yukon with my husband, working in First Nation with the various bands. And it was very humbling for me because, again, I felt, as a white person, I felt like I had to apologize for
Right.
everything that has happened. And I didn't know enough about the residential school system. This is back in 20 years ago now. I mean, I do now, but at the time I didn't understand what had happened and what had really happened until I was meeting with people who had experienced the trauma of that. And it was horrifying.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Kind of blown away by that. Oh, we found your song.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. It is Stop the Rain.
Stop the Rain. Thank you.
I'm leaving. Stop the rain, I'm leaving. Stop the rain, I'm leaving. I'm not going to sing it because I don't know it.
No, but Mariel could have said that a couple of weeks ago and it was gloomy. Stop the gloom, I'm leaving.
Well, you know me, we were
You've had June gloom for
on the beach
April.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really want our audience to go out and get your book. I love the title, Beyond the Label. I love the title. And I know that in that book, it's chock full of tools that you can give us to learn how to move beyond. You talked about the gestational stress because of the epigenetic, because of the environment, whether mom or dad are going through stress, and how baby can absorb that and then come into the world already with a label already. And then, but I loved that you shone light on it and said, but it can change. Mm-hmm. And I know that you share that in the book. I know you share tons of information. This is a book that everyone needs. I know I'm going to get it because everyone is touched by, on some level, through our anxiety, on whatever the levels are. All of us, none of us are unmarred by this. So thank you for all the work you've done. It really is, it's really, hats off to you. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And you've written quite a few books. You wrote The Essential Diet, Eating for Mental Health, which I just love that. It's straight to the point, from shadows to light, a whole human approach to mental health.
That's a compilation. That's like a few compilations.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. But moving beyond a journal into self-discovery, which I just love that you are, it's a holistic approach. And that's what I'm always saying. The audience will maybe roll their eyes when they hear this again, but I talk about the 7 doctors, and the 7 doctors are Dr. Sun, Dr. Air, Dr. Water, Dr. Exercise, Dr. Nutrition, Dr. Rest, and Dr. Earth. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're free.
And you're right.
And yeah.
Yeah. I just want to speak to the exercise piece though, really quick for people.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Oh my God, please.
Just because, it is such an important piece, and the research, it stands up to SSRIs in research for people who are mild to moderately depressed. It is equal, if not better than, an SSRI to get. And
there are studies to back.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Asking a depressed person to exercise is kind of like asking a blind person to see. So this is where it comes back to that community piece and back to that loneliness conversation that, depression is a disease of isolation. It's something where you often turn into yourself. I know for myself, many people didn't know that, it was a big surprise that I attempted suicide, because it's not something that I was out announcing to the world that this is how I'm feeling. Right. And so I'm glad that that's shifted and changed over the last, however many years it's been since I was originally diagnosed, a long time. But, here's the thing I'll say. In some days for me, when I was a 10 out of 10 depressed, the only thing I may have accomplished in a day is getting out the door, And it may have taken me 2, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours to move from the bed, to get dressed, to put my shoes on, to get out there. But never once did I come back feeling worse.
Yes.
I went out.
That's so great. I love that you address that in that way, because you're right. Like, nobody knows what it's like to be, well, you do, to be in this dark night of the soul, and how incredibly challenging it is just to get yourself to, stand up, walk into the kitchen, to do things that you're meant to do. That's the hardest piece of mental health, is when you've already gone into a deep hole. How do you dig yourself out? And to have the acknowledgement of that, and also for the people that have to deal with people that are suffering, you have to have an understanding that they're in, it's like they're in quicksand or they're in mud, and they simply can't move them, so having compassion and just being able to step away. It's not, because in some ways you can't do anything except hold space for them to make a choice, right? You can't make that choice for them.
Yeah. And I'll share this story with you. I heard there was a woman whose son, he was 16. He was not doing good. In his room, not coming out, depressed. It was not a very good situation. And he would not speak to anybody, which doesn't help. So the mother, being beside herself, concerned about her child, she decided, well, what's one thing that I can do? So she made him a sandwich, and she bring him this sandwich, and she put it beside his bed. And some days he'd eat it, other days, for days on end, he wouldn't. But she continued to bring him a sandwich. And then at some point, the shift happened, and he turned the corner. And then she asked him, how did you turn the corner? This is, several months after. And he said, it was your sandwich.
Oh,
your sandwich, right? Yeah. Isn't that beautiful?
Really
Usually
is.
I cry when I tell this story, but it's because, and so you as a mom, if you're listening to this with your teenager that's struggling, you think you're not doing enough. And the thing is, you just got to show up, right?
Show up.
You just got to be there in love. Like you said,
Love.
compassion, empathy, not the, why can't you get out of bed? And look at you, not that type of using the language of love and compassion, which was summed up in the sandwich,
That's so beautiful.
I love that.
Oh my God. Christina, you're just, you touch me so deeply.
You're a treasure.
You really are. I mean, what you've been through is inspirational and courageous and amazing. And this has been a very special interview for us, because you really are speaking our language, and it's a language that I really want people to understand, that it's a solution. This language you're speaking, the language of love, the language of connecting with the earth, the land, the acknowledgement of all the pieces that make a whole being and a whole balanced being. It's just beautiful. So thank you so much for coming on our show. Again, we want to tell our listeners to buy your book, Beyond the Label: 10 Steps to Improve Your Mental Health with Naturopathic Medicine. So great. Cannot wait to read it myself. And please come back and speak to us again. You're a treasure, like Melissa said.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So grateful for you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to Outcomes the Sun Radio. This is Melissa Yamaguchi with my co-host and sweetheart of a friend, Mariel Hemingway. And I'm here to share with you an energy tip. And I think it's going to be something that you're going to appreciate. I believe so. If you want to deal with gossip, you want to deal with rumor and energy that's coming at you that feels attacking, one of the best things that you can do in feng shui is to get a rooster. Now, not a real one, but you can get a ceramic rooster, a little play rooster. There's oftentimes little plastic ones that they'll have when children are playing farmhouse or something, or wooden ones, or you can even get a picture of a rooster. But if you place the rooster on your desk, let's say it's happening in the office and there's a lot of office politics going on and you feel as though your position to power rise is being usurped by somebody else. You place that rooster on your desk where it faces the door that enters where you enter your office space, or across from you if you're in an open floor plan, and you have energetically placed protection around you. Now, I've had many CEOs with whom I've worked who said, Melissa, I'm not putting this, I'm not doing that, I don't want to have anything to do with that, I'm not putting all these little doodads looking like I'm got a voodoo desk at work. Okay, great. Well, what you need to understand is that oftentimes taking an action to remedy something in your life may have a placebo effect, but guess what? It works. So by taking action in your life and making a move, and by telling yourself, I'm placing this here, do I believe, as a very logical farm girl whose grandparents owned farmland and grew up in Oklahoma, do I believe that that little plastic, wooden, or ceramic rooster is doing something? I don't. However, what I do believe is that by me taking action and placing this there with the knowledge that this is stopping something from coming at me. People use evil eyes. I'm not equating anything here, but people use different symbolism to thwart off negative energy, to help them move through something. I know when people have gone through AA, they're given a coin. They take that coin and they place it in their pocket. And you oftentimes, when you encounter someone who is however many days sober, they will pull that coin out, their celebratory coin. Does that coin stop them from doing something? No, it is symbolism. So in the symbolism of feng shui, a rooster can stop the pecking from coming at you. It can stop the biting and the clawing coming at you in the form of gossip and negative speak. So when I've had clients say to me, I don't want a rooster on my desk, I will ask them to print out a rooster that they're willing to deal with and tape it under the desk. It is still the symbolism of the power that you put in your favor, where you are cognitive of things that are coming around you and you are no longer a victim. You are now participating in your life. That's my tip for you. I'm going to ask that you not go too far, please. No pulling off the side of the road and grabbing errant roosters, crossing it for your car and your desk. I'm going to ask you to stay close at hand. Coming up next, Mariel Hemingway will be sharing with you tips on health and balance. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun.
Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio, and I'm here to give you a little bit of a balance tip. I want to talk about, well, first of all, I want to say I got to get myself a rooster, but that's beside the point. Now, getting back to my tip, I want to talk about minerals. Minerals are very, very important. And when I wake up in the morning, I drink 32 ounces of water, which is a lot, I know. And I'm going to drink some water right now. And I put minerals in my water. And the reason I do is because our water is depleted of minerals, our soil is depleted of minerals, and minerals are one of those kind of key things that really helps you with body aches. It can help you with mental clarity. There's all kinds of different things that minerals, magnesium, calcium, all these different minerals can do for the brain and the body. And it's incredibly important. I think we all have had injuries in our lives or aches and pains from working out or whatever. And when you start taking minerals, it really will shift some of that in your body. So I use a mineral called, hang on, don't go anywhere. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to get it because I want to show it, even though I'm going to have to say it to the people that are, okay, here it is.
Mariel's doing that thing that your mom does when she walks out of the room, still giving you instructions on what to do while she goes to work. And then you're sitting there chewing your nails, wondering, did she say do the laundry and the dishes, or did she say mow the yard and fold the clothes? You're totally confused. She's back.
Here it is. It's called NVT minerals. Those are the minerals that I use. You can do, it's an ionic drinking minerals. And actually it is a friend of mine who created these minerals, but they're really, really good. She also has minerals that you put in the bath which are also really good. And I'm sure you've seen that in a CVS, you've seen those minerals, Epsom salt, that kind of thing, really is effective for your muscles. But these are the minerals that I put in my water. I've got water right here for those that are just listening, but it's called NBT, and they're ionic drinking minerals. There are many brands on the market for ionic drinking minerals that you can, that is in liquid form, that you put a few droppers full into your water. And I'm telling you, you're going to see a big change in body aches and pains. And the best benefit of magnesium, especially in the evening, taking magnesium at night. And I do take a more kind of supplement form at night, is that it will help you to sleep better. Magnesium at night can help you sleep better. There's another brand called Calm that is magnesium. It's a magnesium compound that you sprinkle into water that actually helps you to sleep. So, minerals, that's my tip. My tip is minerals.
Did you bring up PIM?
PIM. Oh,
So
yes.
Zach Williams and Olivia June have a product called PIM that has the magnesium and 4 different types of magnesium. I bought some of it.
And it's for calming you down. And honestly, how could I forget that? And they're powerful. You actually feel kind of.
I'm going to take some right now. I got some, and I have been taking it at night, and I've been really pleased with my sleep as a result.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, everyone, this was a great show. I'm still inspired by Dr. Christina. I'm inspired by the rooster tip. I'm trying to figure out where I can find a rooster that's not plastic.
You can print one out. You can print one out, then tape it underneath the table or something, for sure.
Oh, really? That's all you have to do?
That's what that's why I was saying, a lot of my clients don't want to have a figurine. So I tell them, print out a rooster that appeals to you.
I think I should have one in my pocket when I'm near Gold's Gym and somebody's taking a picture of me, and maybe,
Get a rooster bandana.
Hey, everyone, this has been great. We love you so much. Thank you for joining us on Out Comes the Sun Radio. Melissa Yamaguchi, my best friend, thank you for being here. Thank you to Jeremiah Higgins, who is our executive producer, Slater Smith, who is also a producer on this show, and Dr. Dugan, Richard Dugan, who is also our sound engineer, and everybody else who makes it possible to bring Out Comes the Sun Radio to you. Thank you all.
Out Comes the Sun has been a production of Evolve Entertainment. Hosts Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi. Executive producer Jeremiah Higgins. And sound engineer and producer Richard Dr. D. Dugan. Thank you for listening.